Good morning. This is the time and place for the Planning Hearing Officer hearing for September 1st, 2021. My name is Milka Toledo and I will be conducting the hearing as hearing officer. Due to the COVID-19 novel coronavirus and health recommendations from LA County Health Department, this hearing is being conducted public virtually with no members of the public present. The public is encouraged to watch and participate from the safety of their homes to practice social distancing. The meeting can be viewed on local cable TV and is being streamlined online at the city's website at www.glendaleca.gov. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. City staff will be submitting the questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person. We have one case involving discretionary permit applications for this morning. The hearing will proceed as follows. I will read the description of the application request. I will read the reports received from other city departments and other letters or communications and interested parties. The case planner will make a brief overview of the case, give analysis, and make a recommendation. The applicant will then be connected in by telephone, stating both name and address, and will be asked to present the case within a 15-minute time limit. Others in support or in opposition to the application and interested parties will be connected by telephone to give comments, again clearly stating both name and address within a 3-minute time limit. Lastly, the applicant will be given the opportunity to make closing comments if desired in response to testimonies given by preceding speakers within a 5-minute time limit. The hearing will be closed and the case will be taken under submission. Findings. If the evidence presented in the application and at the hearing meets the required findings set forth in the municipal code, then the project can either be approved or approved with conditions. If the findings of fact are not evident, then the request will be denied. Decision. After the hearing, the decision will be prepared in writing and will be in the form of a letter sent to the applicant and to all persons who responded to the public notice, either by speaking at this hearing or by submitting written responses and have provided their name and mailing address. The date of the decision will be the date appearing on the letter. Records of decisions for all projects will be posted online of the Planning Division's website. Appeals. Under the appeal provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30.62 of the Glendale Municipal Code, the decision may be appealed to the Planning Commission within 15 days of the date of the decision. Anyone wishing to appeal must contact the case planner to obtain forms and information regarding the appeal process and submittal. Public notice. Notification of this hearing was accomplished by the use of public notices, which were mailed to property owners within 500 feet of the subject property, physically posted on the site in question, and placed in the local newspaper. I would like to also inform everyone that the official proceedings of the planning hearing officer's hearing are being televised live and may be viewed online on the city's website. So today we have actually two cases, but it involves one address. So there is a variance, PVAR, it's a setback and standards variance, case number PVAR 2108841, and parking reduction permit case number PPRP 2108839. And the applicant's name is Shep Wainwright for Glendale Studio One Owner LLC. Project address is 1233 South Glendale Avenue, 1221-1233 South Glendale Avenue, 1214 through 1234 South Maryland Avenue. The project description involves the applicant is proposing to demolish all the existing buildings and structures on site and to construct a new 75,217 square foot commercial building, East End Studios, for a soundstage production use that will include 2 one-story sound stages attached to a 3-story plus mezzanine ancillary office building with a roof deck and a new surface parking lot. The project site is 96,043 square feet or 2.2 acres in area with frontage on 2 streets. The easterly half of the project site facing South Glendale Avenue is zoned C3 Commercial Service Height District 1, and the westerly half fronting South Maryland is zoned R2250P Medium Density Residential Parking Overlay. The applicant is requesting multiple variances in conjunction with the development: elimination of the required interior setback, landscape and masonry wall buffers between the C3 zone and the R2250 zones, construction of a wall and gate in the street front setback area of the R2250 zoned portion, reduction in the required landscaping for the R2250 zoned portion, including tree planting, dispersal requirements for parking lots, construction of a trash collection area within the P overlay zone, and an increase in the maximum height to 57 feet 6 inches, where the maximum height permitted is 50 feet in the C3 zone portion, to allow for shade canopies for a rooftop deck. In the C31 Commercial Service Zone Height District 1 and R2250P Medium Density Residential Parking Overlay Zones, described as lots 2, 3, 21, 22, 25, portion of lot 26, tract number 314, and lot A, parcel map GLN number 1409. APNs 5640, 015, 009, 010, 029, 030, 033, 036, and 037. The applicant is also requesting a parking reduction permit to allow 113 parking spaces and 2 loading spaces, where 119 parking spaces and 5 loading spaces are required by code for the project. Environmental determination: the project is categorically exempt from CEQA review as a Class 32 infill project or infill development projects. Exemption pursuant to Section 15332 of the state CEQA guidelines, because the project meets all of the required findings to qualify for this categorical exemption. So we did receive comments from building comments. Seem to be general comments that I'm assuming you already have a copy of the comments. If not, please contact your case planner and she could forward those to you. Comments received from Glendale Water and Power seem pretty standard. Location of power poles shall be clearly shown on the proposed plans for approval. Project to maintain a 5-foot minimum clearance from face of power pole in all horizontal directions, in addition to all the other comments listed. Water has general comments. Comments from Public Works Engineering. Seem pretty standard. Traffic comments from our traffic engineering staff. There's some comments about project does not propose driveway access on Glendale Avenue. So therefore, the applicant shall remove red curb adjacent to the existing driveways to be removed, excluding red curb adjacent to fire hydrants. Minimum 15 foot of red curb on both sides of the existing fire hydrant on Glendale Avenue adjacent to the project site shall be maintained. and some general comments about not storing trash bins in the right of way. And you need to obtain a construction traffic control plan for the use during the project construction. Comments from urban forestry. They have a list of suggested conditions regarding planting in the city's right-of-way, regarding street trees on both Glendale Avenue and on South Maryland Avenue. There are specifications regarding planting of trees. For example, on South Maryland Avenue, plant 6 Cape chestnut trees. And on South Glendale Avenue, plant 1 Solid Zelkova. All 7 new trees shall be 24-inch box in size and meet the city standards for nursery stock and planting specifications. So please read through those conditions or suggested conditions, please. And we did receive a letter or email correspondence from the owner of the property located at 1238 South Maryland Avenue, Sam Mahakian. They're located southwest of the project subject site. I directly abut the property and I support the approval of the variances and parking reduction permit requests. I've been a member of this community for over 50 years and I'm very pleased to see the investment that East End Studios is making into the city of Glendale and the new jobs they will create. So with that, I will turn it over to the case planner, Vista Ezzati, to go over report, analysis, and recommendation.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen. Can everyone see my screen? Yes. Okay. All right, so this is for variance case number PVAR 2108841 and parking reduction permit case 2108839 for East End Studios located at 1233 South Glendale Avenue. The proposed project is to demolish the existing buildings and structures on site and construct an approximately 75,000 square foot commercial building for soundstage production use. The owner's intent is to redevelop the project site to suit the needs of the existing operator, East End Studios, and to unify all of the current operations into one building. The project includes 2 one-story sound stages attached at the rear to a 3-story ancillary office building, which also includes a mezzanine. There will be a rooftop deck with shade canopy structures, and then a surface parking lot at the rear with 113 spaces and solar panel structures. In conjunction with the redevelopment of the site, the applicant is requesting multiple variances. Overall, these requests are relatively minor deviations from certain zoning code requirements to accommodate the needs of the soundstage production uses operations that differ from the typical commercial use in a C3 zone, such as a retail or general office. The variance requests include elimination of the required interior setback, landscaping and masonry wall buffers, construction of a wall and gate in the street front setback area of the residentially zoned portion of the site, reduction in required landscaping for the residentially zoned portion, as well as tree dispersal requirements for the surface parking lot, construction of a trash collection area in the parking overlay zone where it is currently prohibited, and to increase the maximum overall height to 57 feet 6 inches, where 50 feet is the limit, in order to accommodate the shade canopies at the rooftop deck. The applicant is also requesting a parking reduction permit to provide 113 parking spaces where 119 are required, and to provide 2 loading spaces where the code requires 5. The project site is approximately 2.2 acres. It has frontage on 2 streets, South Glendale Avenue and South Maryland Avenue. The site is also split zoned, which is a unique condition. Portion of the lot is located in the C3 zone, Height District 1, and the other portion is located in the R2250 multifamily zone with a parking overlay. City records indicate the site has been used as a soundstage production with ancillary offices since 1986. The current operator, East End Studios, has been at this location since December 2020. Currently, there are 7 buildings on the project site along the westerly half that are going to be demolished, including 2 Craftsman era buildings. None of the buildings are considered a historic resource. There are currently 96 parking spaces serving the operation, with vehicular access taken from 2 existing driveways located along South Glendale Avenue. Both of those driveway aprons will be closed as part of redevelopment of the site. The surrounding area is a mix of commercial and residential uses. To the north is Glendale Fire Station number 22. Directly across the street is South Maryland, is a surface parking lot used for vehicle inventory for the nearby car dealerships, as well as a parking structure used for the nearby car dealerships. This is the site plan for the project. The area shown in red are the studio areas. The area shown in green will be the ancillary support offices. This area here is the rooftop deck with the 3 solar shade structures. And then the northerly portion of the parking lot over here is where the solar panel structures are proposed. This slide shows the proposed floor plans for the first floor, mezzanine, second floor, and the third floor. This space is for support offices for the soundstage use and will include primarily general office space, as well as makeup and dressing rooms, storage areas, and green rooms. These are the primary building elevations. This east elevation at the top is what's facing South Glendale Avenue, and this elevation down here is the west elevation that faces the parking lot and South Maryland. The first variance request is to eliminate the required 28'9" interior setback for the C3 portion adjacent to a residential zone, and also provide a reduced interior setback of 14 feet for the southwesterly portion of the lot adjacent to a residential building. The second variance request is to eliminate the landscape and masonry wall buffer requirements between the C3 zone and the R2250 zone boundary. The property line between the C3 portion and the residential portion is approximately 285 feet in length, and the majority is adjacent to the parking lot for the new building. For both these requests, the intent of the zoning requirements is not relevant because there are no residential uses on site that require the separation or the buffers. The portion zoned residential will be a parking lot to serve the soundstage use, and the strict application of the landscape and masonry wall buffers would provide a physical separation between the building and associated parking lot, where this is all one project site and internal circulation is necessary for the operation. For the southerly 35 feet right here, if you can see my mouse, it abuts a residential building located at 1238 South Maryland. There will be an improvement from the current condition because the setback will be increased to a 14-foot minimum as opposed to the current condition, which is 5 feet. There's also an existing masonry wall for a portion of it. Staff is recommending a condition of approval that wall be extended in this area to the maximum length possible, but also taking into account the power pole that's at the corner. So GWP would have to approve the location. The third request is to permit the construction of a wall and gate with an overall height of 6 feet in the required street front setback area of the residentially zoned portion. The red line here shows the location of the wall, and the yellow line shows the property line. There is an existing 3-foot 4-inch masonry wall with a wrought iron railing attached to the top in the same location. The intent is to remove the wrought iron railing, repair and rebuild as needed portions of the wall, and extend the height to 6 feet. The location of the wall in the setback has already been established by what's there, which was built in 1986 when the soundstage use was first established. The proposed use is non-residential and is also not a typical commercial use and has operational and security needs that differ from the typical C3 use. As such, this request is appropriate. The variance requests also include deviations from the 25% landscaping requirement for the residentially zoned portion of the site, as well as the tree dispersal requirements for parking lots. The project is providing the minimum 25% landscaping, but as opposed to dispersing it on the residentially zoned portion, they are requesting to disperse it throughout the entire project site, including the rooftop deck. Requiring the landscaping to be provided solely on the residential portion of the lot would result in a reduction of parking spaces, and it would also impact the vehicular backup and turning radii. The project is also complying with the minimum tree planting requirements for parking lots, where 19 are required, and there's going to be a total of 35 proposed. But they are requesting relief from the tree dispersal requirements in parking lots. And instead, they are proposing to plant the trees along the perimeter and adjacent to the building. Complying with this requirement would impact the new solar panel structure shown here, and it would either require the parking stalls to encroach into the required front setback or preclude compliance with required parking dimensions, including backup. The next request is to locate the trash and collection area in the P overlay zone where it's currently prohibited by code. This right here is the proposed location, and this is the design. The trash enclosure will be screened from view by the proposed boundary wall. It'll be designed to be compatible with the new building, and a green screen is also proposed. The P overlay was intended to allow for surface parking lots next to commercial properties that served multiple properties and tenants, but it does not take into account this situation where there is one owner and one entity operating the site. Also, the new building spans the frontage along South Glendale Avenue, and there will be no access to the street. The proposal is appropriate and will accommodate operational needs, as well as allowing accessibility not only for the user, but the city's sanitation services. The last request is to allow for a maximum height of 57 feet 6 inches for the new building, where the maximum allowed by code is 50 feet. The code exempts stairwells, elevator shafts, and rooftop equipment screening from height, but if they were taken into account, the overall height of the building would actually be 60 feet 2 inches, which is this blue line right here. From the lowest point of the building to the top of the parapet, the proposal complies with the 50-foot height requirement. To accommodate a building and safety required fall protection railing, that height will increase to 51 feet. Also, the request is related to shade canopies at the rooftop deck, and it does not include any additional floor area, massing, or stories. The proposed 57-foot 6-inch height will only be on the front of the building, oriented towards South Glendale, and the portions of the building that are the studios will not have any rooftop decks. The request is appropriate as the operational requirements and industry standards for the soundstage use typically require large and exceedingly tall studio areas, which are needed for the construction of large indoor sets and filming. Staff believes that all 4 findings to the variance request can be made as detailed in the staff report. The variance request will still comply with the intent of the applicable ordinances and also takes into account the use of the site as a soundstage production use with development and operational needs that differ from the typical C3 use, and it also takes into account the unique split zone condition of the entire site. The applicant is also requesting a parking reduction permit to allow 113 spaces where the code requires 119 and 2 loading spaces where the code requires 5. The code requires the number of stalls to be calculated based on gross floor area measured to exterior walls. However, if net floor area were considered, which includes the occupiable spaces for the operation, the 113 spaces would comply with code. Also, indoor sets generally take up a lot of room for soundstage uses and are not fully occupied. As such, the parking requirements for the new soundstage production facility are greater than what will be needed by the operation. The code requirements for loading spaces classifies the soundstage as an industrial use, but the loading needs of East End Studios is not like the typical industrial use like manufacturing, wholesaling, or warehousing. Typical delivery requirements for the studios are similar to an office use, as there's not a constant influx of trucks loading and unloading products or goods. For office uses, the code would only require 1 loading space. The 2 loading spaces provided will satisfy the need of the land use based on the operational needs of the studio. The intent of the parking and loading regulations is being met based on the operational needs of the use, and enough parking and loading is being provided to satisfy the use. As it relates to public comments received, staff received 1 comment letter in support of the project. All comments received are on file with the planning department and are part of the public record, and copies of all comments have been provided to you for consideration. Staff recommends approval of the setback and standards variance and the parking reduction permit with conditions subject to the draft findings and conditions of approval included as Exhibit 1 to the staff report. That concludes my presentation, and I am available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Zati. I do have a question. So just to reiterate the point that you brought up, the building itself, all buildings are located on the C3 portion of the site, correct?
Correct.
And the parking lot is associated with the use is located on the R2250 P overlay portion of the site.
Correct.
Therefore, soundstage production, the use itself is permitted on the C3 zone, and then the parking lot is permitted on the R2250 with a P parking overlay is a permitted use.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I have the applicant come forward and state your name, address for the record, and introduce the project, and please go over the 4 required findings for the variance and then findings for the parking reduction, please.
Good morning, hearing officer. My name is Chris Manasserian. I'm representing East End Studios. First of all, I wanted to thank you for the presentation, Vista. That was great. You did a great job of covering all the bases. I wanted to hand it over to our developer, Shep Wainwright, who he's going to discuss the project and vision for the site, and then he's going to hand it off to Tima, who's going to discuss the design, and then after we're going to come back and talk about our findings and the application.
Thank you, Chris. Really appreciate that. And Vista, thank you so much for your thorough work. So I know we only have 15 minutes, so I will try to get through our portion relatively quickly and hand it over to Tima and to Michael and Chris for the findings portion of it. But before I get started, I just want to thank the City of Glendale, specifically the planning department that we've been working with now for almost a year since we started having our first conversations with them. with Vista, with Jay Platt, with Eric Kraus, with Kristen. And I think it's important to note, we have been developing projects around the country for the last 12 years. And I think that it's important to note that the way that Glendale approached this project, and when we came to them and said, this is what we're doing, they really at the very beginning tried to understand what it was that we were trying to accomplish and how our business works. And so that's a really refreshing take on things. And so we sat down and they said, okay, what are we trying to accomplish here? And how can you guys best run your business? And so we started from that and then started to work from that to figure out how we could work within the guidelines to create the best Class A studio production facility possible. And I think that that's what we've done here. So just to take a quick step back, who is East End Capital and East End Studios? East End Capital is a company that was founded over 12 years ago. We have been developing and investing in projects in multiple asset classes around the country for the last 12 years. East End Studios is our management arm and our operating platform that we have put together in the last 2 years because it is our goal and our intent to run these studios for a very long period of time. We're not just a developer, we're also the operator. And so in doing so, we formed a partnership with two very well-known seasoned studio veterans, Craig Chapman and Miles Nestel, who were former developers of the studio business Siren Studios, and they also have a production company, MediaWorks, and we formed East End Studio Management to run these facilities. So we think we are at the forefront of developing at the moment 4 projects in and around Los Angeles, another one that we hope to be in front of you very shortly in Glendale, and trying to build the best in class studio production facilities in the Los Angeles area. And so we think we've got that here, and we're very, very excited about the project. So, from our perspective, why Glendale? Glendale is a phenomenal location for this business. As Vista mentioned, this has been a studio production campus since 1986, and it's been running as a successful studio, but it is obviously dated. It does not meet the current needs of where this industry is going. And I don't know how much you have all read about it, but there's a massive amount of demand in the LA County right now for studio production facilities, primarily driven by the streaming services, the Netflixes, the Amazon, Hulu, Disney, right? And they have been trying to gobble up space. And when people think of that business, they typically think of Hollywood or they think of Burbank. But the reality is that Glendale is a phenomenal location for its access into what we call the TMZ, which is the 30-mile zone, and the ability to attract the best productions and the top talent in the industry. And that's what we think we intend to do here. And so our goal here is to obviously, it is a competitive business, and we need to get hopefully in the ground here shortly so that we can meet the demands and be at the forefront of it. So it's important to know that this is obviously a great location for our industry, and a project like this will create hundreds of jobs, and bring a lot of activity to the South Glendale part of town. And so, we're excited about that. And I think these are, high paying jobs and ones that will be, in and out of this facility for years to come. Our goal for this facility is to ultimately create the best in class two studio facility with support spaces that will attract a long-term tenant for it. So our goal, if we can, is to secure a long-term lease for this facility when it's ultimately developed with one of those streaming platforms or a network, who are out in the market now looking for space. So that's our goal. And so in conclusion, we at East End Studios, we're here to stay. We look forward to being part of this community for years to come, as evidenced by a project that we intend to be in front of you that's even larger, significantly larger than this one in the city of Glendale shortly. So, we are making, a significant amount of investment into this project and other projects into the city of Glendale. And, we can't thank you enough for the effort that you guys have taken to put together this thorough presentation. We obviously concur with city planning's findings on this. And thank you for working with us right out of the gate to make sure that we could work within the confines of the code to develop what we consider to be, a best-in-class facility that will be here, hopefully operating for the next 50 years. So thank you, Vista. I'll hand it over to, I believe I'll hand it over to Tima to speak on behalf of sort of the more nuanced what it is that we're developing, and then hope I didn't eat up too much of our 15 minutes, and then we'll take it from there. But thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I've unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hi, thanks, Shep. Great presentation. Appreciate that. Obviously, we're really excited and enjoy working with East End. They take a very thorough approach to developing these properties, and the planning department, I concur with Shep completely. You guys have been fantastic with giving feedback and direction on how to, best improve the urban fabric of the city. Designing Studios is...
Tima, do you mind stating your last name and your address, please?
No problem. My name is Tima Bell. I am the principal of Relativity Architects, the architect on the project. And our address is at 421 Colleton Street in Los Angeles, 90013.
Thank you.
Sure. Designing studios is difficult within an urban fabric, as a studio typically is a windowless box. That's the best way for them to produce the things that we love on TV, but it doesn't look that great when it's in the middle of a city. Industrial zones are a little bit different, but this is, right on Glendale Boulevard in a commercial corridor. So it was a task challenge to make sure that what we designed took into account, the area around, the context that it survives in, as well as, your guidelines with the Glendale commercial corridor. So the design of the building, as Vista indicated, was it's large studio space, which basically the openings face backwards towards the parking lot for ease of access for trucks, loading, and all of the necessary elements for production. And the office space, which is 3 stories plus a mezzanine, faces Glendale Avenue, where you have vehicular and pedestrian traffic. We really tried to design this building in such a way that as a pedestrian, you're not overwhelmed by the height. It will be one of the larger buildings along Glendale, although there are other buildings down the street that are similar in size. So it's not going to be something that towers over everything on the block. If you move down Glendale Boulevard, you can see that there are a number of buildings that have similar heights down the street. The building itself along Glendale is designed somewhat with the pedestrian in mind. There is seating areas, landscaping. The facade is pushed back at certain areas to give a little bit of a breather. We're not right up smack dab on the property line. The entrance is actually inset into the building. And there is a play between glazing and a smooth coat stucco or plaster over concrete that goes intermittent as you move down the facade. So as a design, we were conscious very much of the pedestrian vehicular traffic of the commercial corridor of Glendale, and obviously the ability to, all the busyness that goes on during a production will be in the parking lot area, which will be off of Maryland. That was actually also a conscious choice, coming in off of Maryland rather than Glendale and stopping traffic, because there will be a reasonable amount of vehicular traffic. And as Glendale is a pretty busy, thoroughfare, we felt that coming off Maryland would be better suited to the community in and around the area. We're really proud of the design. It's something that, other studio executives have seen it and said, this is one of the best design studios we've ever seen, both for studio function and in the way the office and production support assists the studio. So we are super happy. Just as a last side note, studios are difficult to design in a sustainable manner. They are large power users. Their whole goal is essentially production. It's not factory, but it's film or video, and it's difficult to make them sustainable, but we have taken every effort that we can to build sustainability into this project. We have recycled materials as the formwork for the concrete. We've included solar. We're trying to use a passive heat. We're doing whatever we can in order to bring this building to a very sustainable level. And in the future, obviously, on other projects with East End, we intend to make that a goal every time. So we just wanted to make sure that Glendale understands this isn't just a building we're putting in a commercial zone. We actually care about the environment and the process, and in that sense, Glendale as well. So thank you very much. I'll hand it over to Chris, I believe, who will report against the findings and talk about the Vista's presentation.
One second. Let me just. Okay. All right. So thank you, Tima. Thank you, Shep. That was great. I'm just going to go through. So I prepared a short slideshow. It's a summary of what we're doing, and I'll go through it and I'll talk about the findings and the application and the variances that we're requesting.
And can you please just state your name and address for the record?
Chris Manasserian from Gonzalez Law Group. I'm here with Michael Gonzalez. Address 860 Wilshire Boulevard, or 800 Wilshire Boulevard, Suite 860 in Los Angeles. So this is the existing site. It consists of 7 structures and an existing surface parking lot. The property contains 96,034 square feet of floor area. The existing uses currently on the property are soundstage uses, ancillary, office, and parking uses. These are renderings of the proposed project that you're familiar with already. This is just a short summary of the project. So the property is 96,043 square feet, split zoned into C31 and R2250P. The project is going to demolish the existing studios to build one structure comprised of 2 sound stages and supporting office structure. The office will be 3 stories with a maximum height of 57 feet to the lowest point on grade to the top of the proposed rooftop shade canopies to allow for a break room area on the office rooftop. The safety railings that wraps around the building is going to reach 51 feet in height. The vast majority of the structure will be 50 feet in height, though, pursuant to Glendale Municipal Code requirements. And these are our requested actions. We're asking for setback relief, landscape buffer relief, allowance to repair and add on to a wall within the street front setback area in the R zone, deviations from the landscaping requirements and tree dispersal requirements, permission to allow trash collection area within the P overlay zone, and a height variance. These requests, as Vista mentioned, are minor deviations from the code that ultimately allow for an upgrade of the existing uses on the site. We're also requesting a parking reduction permit to allow 113 spaces in lieu of the required 119 spaces and 2 loading areas in lieu of the 5 required by the GMC. We've prepared a Class 32 exemption for the property. The C document and its dependencies include traffic analysis, noise analysis, air quality analysis, and a GHG analysis. The C documents conclude that the project meets all the requirements for the Class 32 and is thus exempt from CEQA. Here's a site plan for the project. As you can see, the office and studio uses are all located on the C31 portion on the right, and the parking is entirely located on the R2250P portion on the left. The interior C3 zone setback and landscape buffer requirements that are proposed by the GMC don't take into account split zone properties. So these requirements are will result in a project that is essentially set back from itself, as you can see. So this area would be set back from the parking area, which doesn't really make sense when it comes to the intent of the GMC. This is the parking lot. As mentioned, it includes 113 parking spaces for automobiles and 2 loading spaces. The parking lot's ingress and egress are from Maryland Avenue. These are the studios. The office space pedestrian access is from Glendale Avenue, and the studios are accessed either from the office or the parking lot, as you can see. This is the height. As mentioned, the project requests a height variance for the canopies and the safety railings. This is a visibility study which demonstrates how the massing and bulk of the canopies and the safety railing are thin and non-intrusive, and due to their location will actually not be visible from the public right-of-way. These are some details for the entry gate, fence replacement, and trash enclosures. As you can see, there's already an existing wall and a wrought iron fence located on Maryland Avenue. Approval of the variance would simply allow a replacement of that fence with concrete, a much more suitable material. These are the studios. Both of the studios have a 44-foot high ceiling, and they're both, Studio 1 is approximately 21,000 square feet, Studio 2 is 15,000 square feet. These are the office floor plans. The office contains different rooms to support the soundstage uses, including conference rooms, break rooms, flex rooms, green rooms, dressing rooms, and any type of room that supports any the soundstage uses. This is the second and third floor of the office, and this is the rooftop. Due to the configuration of the lot, the rooftop is one of the only outdoor spaces that can actually be utilized as a break area for the employees. The rooftop lounge area contains landscaping and canopies for employees that wish to take break outdoors. And that's why we're requesting the height variance, because without the height variance, those canopies wouldn't be able to be built, and there would be no shade at the top of the roof, making it very inconvenient for employees that are trying to take a break up there. These are the east and west elevations. As you can see, the massing for the height increase right here is minimal and non-intrusive. So there was some discussion with planning and the traffic department about how loading and unloading was going to work. Our architects provided this graphic to show the ingress and the egress for trucks to and from the loading area. As you can see, there will be no backing out of the driveway. And now with that, I'm going to give it to Michael.
Good morning, Hearing Officer Toledo, Michael Gonzalez, Gonzalez Law Group, 800 Wilshire Boulevard, Suite 860, Los Angeles. Just briefly to summarize, in terms of making these findings, I think, while the Glendale Municipal Code is a great code to work with, it doesn't really contemplate, as Chris mentioned, a site that is split zone but used by one user. In this case, we believe we have consistency with all of the zoning requirements, because if it were uniformly zoned, we wouldn't be dealing with buffers and setbacks that are intended to separate unrelated commercial from unrelated residential, creating that break in space from unrelated users. In our view, we are simply updating and replicating what's existing on the site now, but in a better, modern way that will meet today's market demands. In that regard, if the code were applied to us by the strict letter of the law, we would not be able to accomplish what's there now. And that would be the hardship and the disservice that the code, I don't think, intended, because it didn't contemplate the condition that exists on the ground here, which is why we believe we make the findings for the variances as well as the parking reduction permit. 113 spaces is sufficient for the need, and 2 loading spaces is sufficient for the type of loading activity that will occur with this use. In terms of the categorical exemption, we believe we make all of those findings as well. The use is consistent with the general plan on both sides of the zoning. The parking overlay permits parking. Interestingly enough, if this were only a residential zone, I would be able to have trash enclosures in the residential zone. It's the P overlay that eliminates that potential. So again, we believe we meet the spirit intent of the code. And as demonstrated in our presentation, none of what we're asking for is detrimental to the public welfare or the public good and causes no public harm. The height is inconsequential in terms of the building. The location of the wall that we're replicating is already there. Across the street from us is a large automobile dealership that's very auto-oriented by nature. There are not residential users. So we believe this is the right project in the right place that makes the right findings. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you all for your input and comments. I do have some questions. I'm not sure who in the group will be answering them. There's no particular order, but I do have several questions. Some of it maybe has probably already been stated, but please answer the question again, even if you're repeating it. Thank you. So currently the property is used today for sound stage purposes, and it also has a parking lot. And the intent is to upgrade the site with the same use, similar operation, correct?
That is
This is Chef speaking. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Can you explain a little bit more in terms of the business, how it operates today and how it'll change with the larger building in the future as it relates to sound stage? Will it be very similar, or now that you have a larger facility, how would that change in any way?
I can answer that. What exists there today is an outdated facility that lends itself to like short-term commercial uses. Does not lend itself to where the industry is going, which is the production of episodic television. And so to answer your question succinctly, volume of space is the critical driver of studio production facilities. And so the ability to have a space, the scale to be able to create the show or whatever it is that you're trying to create is critical in our industry. And what exists there today does not accomplish that.
Okay. Now that you have a larger facility that you're proposing, would any of the shows or any type of operation at any point in the future include a studio audience or any type of audience?
It's possible, but unlikely.
Would it be, do you have any idea of what type of audience and the number of attendees?
No, it's hard to say, but the reality is that most likely this will be we will be producing episodic, as I said, episodic television shows where there will not be a studio audience. And under a long-term lease is our goal.
And if you potentially did have someone interested in having something other than episodic, but just a scenario, like let's say a game show or like a talk show, right? That has a host. Would that still be something that you would entertain?
It would, and it would be something where we'd have to figure out an off-site parking opportunity to provide that.
And you see where I'm going with this. It's
yeah, no, I understand.
and increase.
If we were, if we were to have this facility filled with, people coming to watch a show, we likely would not be able to support the parking needs of the facility,
Exactly.
with hundreds of guests. So in order to accomplish that show, I'm sure we wouldn't necessarily want to turn it away, but I think we would come back to the city and say, hey, we have secured, a location down the street to provide additional parking for a show of that nature.
Okay, and then go through that permitting requirement, let's say a parking use permit or something.
Yes.
That nature. Okay. What are the hours of operation now currently, and what will be the hours of operation in the future for both the offices, the studios, and also the days of the week?
It currently is a 24/7 operation. It needs to have the ability in our industry. You need to be able to offer that up. Practically speaking, it runs 7 days a week from, early morning, 7:30, 8 a.m. to 6, 7 p.m.
How many employees would be both in the office and the studios combined at the new facility?
It's hard to say because that really is dependent on who the production is that ultimately ends up leasing the property from us, and it could vary greatly. But in general, with these, if you look at how we've developed the the 3 floors of supporting office and the mezzanine, is to accommodate that sort of representative of what we likely think the needs will be. And we've tried to create it in the sort of most efficient way to potentially attract the widest group of potential end users.
In terms of, sometimes when I think of like studio production, I think of trucks, right? Because of shoots and all that. And I don't know if that's something that is associated with this project that you're proposing or not, but will there be large studio like trailers, semi trucks, camera trucks, tractor hauling, you know, like set lighting, generators, dressing trucks, etc., food trucks or any of the sort, on the premises or parked on the premises or anything like that?
I mean, to produce a show from time to time, you will get that. And again, not to deflect the question, but it is very much largely dependent on what the production is and what their needs are. And as a studio operator, we need to be able to accommodate those needs as much as possible. So yes, there will likely be times when we need to get small trucks onto the facility to load in and load out the facility. It is intermittent. It's nothing to the extent of what we have across the street with the parking facility. Used daily for the the car dealership. But yes, we would need to get trucks in and out on the rear, on the Maryland portion. But I also think that it's, as I said, we are trying to, be ahead of the curve. And so one of the things that is happening in our industry is that there is a massive push, and why we need the power requirements that we do is there's a massive push towards virtual productions. And so there's as likely a chance that when this is complete in 18 months, that this will be potentially a completely virtual soundstage. We can't commit to that because I don't know if that'll ultimately be the case, but that could possibly be the case, in which point there will be very nominal load in and load out because it will essentially be a virtual stage where the backdrop and the sets are virtual, they're not actual. So anyway, so that's where this industry is going, and we are trying to develop, as I said, the volume of space in order to potentially accommodate for that.
Do you have that situation there now where there are trucks of the sort that ingress and egress to and from the site for loading?
Yes, we do. Yeah. And it's been going on for the last, and it has not been a problem. And it, as these guys have said, it's been operated like that since 1986.
So that operation, if you will, exists today. So that's not really changing.
It's not a change.
The only thing that would change would be the location, correct, of where those trucks or vehicles ingress and egress, because right now they're probably doing it obviously from Glendale Avenue, not from Maryland.
Correct.
And, visiting, I noticed that Maryland is narrow. So that was just something that kind of dawned on me, like, how would that work? How many trucks do you think? I mean, would they come at the same time? Again,
they usually don't, and they can, and we think that actually having access off of Maryland will actually make it better than trying to stop traffic on Glendale Avenue to pull into our site as it currently sits. So right now, large trucks can get in off of Glendale Avenue, and ultimately they will have the ability to get in off of Maryland. But again, as I said, it's intermittent, and also in our industry, specifically, for the producers and the talent, in some ways it's better to have a more sort of private entrance in the rear of facilities as opposed to a more public one in the front.
Okay. But one of your main reasons, or the main reason why it was switched to Maryland, is to avoid traffic congestion along Glendale Avenue.
That is one of the reasons, for sure.
Okay. And then to your point, also for just the way it operates and privacy or what have you.
Yes, for sure.
Okay. Going back to loading and delivery trucks, will they have restricted hours, or they just can come and go at any time? Just be considerate of the
I don't believe there will be restricted hours. In general, nobody's loading up things in the middle of the night, but I don't think the city has any restrictions on the hours. So I don't think we're going to impose them.
Okay.
If I could interject for you, Shep, this is Tima Bell again. Video, my phone is not working. I wanted to just say that there are often union regulations on loading requirements. So Shep's absolutely right. The ability to load could be at any time given the opportunity, but more than likely will stay within strict union guidelines on loading, which is typically, I think they're allowed to start work at 6 and they're allowed a 12-hour day before it goes into some steep overtime values. So I would estimate the loading to happen consistently between those hours, 6 to 6. Additionally, loading typically happens at the beginning of a shoot and not all the way through. Once the set is built and the props and lighting are in place, there's not a lot of loading that goes on during that time. So for argument's sake, let's say you have a 6-week shoot, you'll have 2 weeks of loading and construction of a set, nothing for 6 weeks, and then a breakdown that takes about a week, which will be unloading and moving the items out of the set. So
it's based on the length of the shoot.
That's correct.
Typically,
Look, there's always things where a live animal may need to be brought in, or some certain special item that is happening during production. Not to mention some catering trucks and trailers for the actors. But in general, the amount of trucks moving back and forth, it's not like a daily occurrence like a warehouse. It typically happens at very precise times at the beginning and ends of shoots, and then the in between is really light and intermittent during that process.
But going back to what was mentioned earlier, this is a current condition.
So, yes, it's already happening right now. That's exactly.
It's happening right now. Okay.
Except it's Glendale, and if you'll notice, for the 2 weeks prior to the shoot over at Glendale, the congestion on Glendale is a little bit tougher. We think moving that to Maryland much better for that corridor.
Okay. Thank you. And do you have any speaker systems out there now? Are you proposing new ones or anything like that?
The intention, privacy. I think, Shep, in designing these types of stages and these uses, privacy is really important. I hate to say the word, but secrecy is a big part of this. As I'm sure you know, after watch Marvel movies or any types of productions, the content of those things is kept incredibly close to vest. The idea is that you don't even know who the actors are, who things are coming. So moving vehicular traffic to the rear allows us a certain level of security and privacy that will it'll bring tenants to the site. They'll come in, they'll see the way that it's designed and built and say, okay, we can deliver talent to the site without having paparazzi or any of these things see people go in and out, which is very important in today's productions.
And that's a good segue regarding security to my next question. Regarding security guards proposed in the parking area, at the entry gates, or anything like that, or 24-hour security. Can you touch on that?
So we will have a significant investment in our security for the property. As far as again, not to punt on it, but the level of security is typically dictated by the client who's leasing the facility. So we'll have to leave it open-ended, but we intend to install, a top of the line security system with cameras that basically cover the entire property, and is, fed 24 hours a day. So
not necessarily like a guard unless that's a request.
Unless it's a request. I mean, we will from the Glendale Avenue portion of it where you can walk into the facility. There will be someone there to greet you when you come in, but that's more like walking into an office building. and they could
Right.
direct you where you need to go depending on which production you might be working with. And then when you enter in the rear, there will be either an access code or likely there will be security that meets you when you enter there. But again, I don't believe it'll likely be a person 24 hours a day, but certainly 7 days a week.
Okay. But mainly in the form of a security system. To your
Mostly in a security system, and there will likely be a person manning security as there is today when you drive into the facility that that greets you and asks you who
Okay.
who you're there to see.
Okay. Can we briefly touch on so the landscaping not being, that's one of your variance requests, dispersed throughout the parking lot? What's the main reason why that cannot be accomplished, or that regulation?
This is Tima. Just a remark on the design of these parking lots. A lot of times we'll need to move trucks and trailers around, and the landscaping medians that would normally be a part of a parking lot kind of don't allow the flexibility that might be necessary. So that's where the request came from, to kind of move it to areas where it won't interrupt the sort of flexibility available to a parking lot that
Okay.
between loading and parking and trailers and trucks and all the different things that will be going on, it doesn't limit it. So that's where the landscaping request. We don't intend for this building to be a brutalist structure and blank in a parking lot. There will be adequate landscaping, and we're just moving it away from median strips and end caps.
This is Mike Gonzalez. If I can quickly add, Hearing Officer Toledo, I think the code contemplated a parking lot that served multiple commercial users that are unrelated, and you pay to park and you walk away, you go buy your ice cream and you go buy your dinner and you come back. Here, as I mentioned, we've got a unified site, which the code didn't contemplate. And moreover, we've got a studio use, as Tima had just mentioned, where that kind of thinking about a parking lot doesn't make much sense, which is why we're asking for not a reduction in the amount of landscaping, but a deviation from where it is located.
And what about lighting for the parking area? Are you proposing it? I didn't see any fixtures or anything on the site plan.
Yes, we are. We have parking lot lighting, and we have lighting off of the main building itself. The idea is that the lighting can act as security, but we will not be lighting up into the sky. Forgive me for lacking I don't remember the technical term, but we will not be up lighting into the sky. All the lighting will be down onto the parking lot.
Right.
It's mainly for security purposes. The idea is that at night, when shooting's completed, we've got as Shep mentioned, a robust security system. It'll keep visual with cameras on everything. We just need to make sure that we can see the parking lot to make sure there's no break-ins.
Well, and it's also a code requirement, so you can follow up in the future regarding
Absolutely.
what the requirements are, so as to also not create any glare, right?
That's correct.
Into adjacent properties.
Yeah, we actually have a lighting plan completed, and we've done the photometrics, and we're just actually going through it with our security design right now to make sure that we both comply with the Glendale code and adequately provide security for the facility.
Okay. And just to confirm, trash recycling area is adjacent to Maryland, correct? On one of the thing close to one of the entrances along Maryland?
That's correct.
Entrance on Maryland, though.
Yeah.
Correct?
Correct.
Circulation?
And it's enclosed. Correct.
Okay, and it'll be screened with vegetation. I believe that's what I saw on the plan.
It'll be screened with vegetation, and it'll be an enclosed sort of area for dumpsters to go into. And I would like to also state that the trash from the facility will likely be the majority out of the office. Production companies typically, when they break down sets, they bring in a dumpster to empty their own trash because they have a whole recycling process that's part of union requirements. So our trash will likely not pick up production level trash like set production and wood and all the different things that you use for building sets. It'll most likely, and most of the time, it'll be just office related and general use related.
Okay. Going back to loading and circulation, there was a condition or suggested condition brought up by our traffic engineering staff. Or actually, I'll take that back. It was suggested condition number 8 in the staff report. And it mentions to comply with the requirements from the Public Works Traffic Division as it relates to driveway width and internal circulation for delivery trucks. And can you again emphasize how you're proposing to comply with that condition?
Michael or Chris, do you guys want to?
Hearing Officer Toledo, we have an existing driveway that we are contemplating relocating, which has also led to 2 conditions about a parcel map. It's not clear at this time if that's going to occur, so we think those conditions, I forget if they're number 10 in both the variance and the parking reduction permit request, but they appear 2 times in the documents. We think that's a little premature. As Shep mentioned, in today's not only technologically evolving world, but the amount of data we can transfer and replicate visually as opposed to physically, we may not even need to deal with trucks coming onto the site. We just don't know at this point. At some point in the future, as we go through the building process, if it's determined that we need to move that driveway, we will address those conditions at that time. But we think right now it's a bit premature.
Okay. So do you agree or disagree with that suggested condition included by the case planner?
Give me 2 seconds to review the language. Hearing Officer Toledo, Tima, if we can speak to some of the circulation that we're thinking about at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, the access of the trucks off Maryland. I mean, the driveway that we have, the 30-foot driveway, we feel that'll be enough. I mean, I've had a number of designs in place for other studios, and we've never had it wider. So I just don't believe it'll be necessary. There has been some conversation about the size of trucks that might need to access the site. I think that's what Michael is leading towards. But in our experience, 30 feet is more than enough, which is what we have designed in place right now.
Okay. But going back to that condition, that the applicant shall, or suggested condition, the applicant shall comply with the requirements from Public Works Division traffic as it relates to driveway with internal circulation for delivery trucks. You are in agreement with that condition, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we will comply.
Yeah, we have no problem with that.
Perfect.
Sorry, I didn't. I thought we were talking about the driveway width. I apologize. I didn't understand.
Oh, no worries.
And forgive me, it's probably my fault for conflating the conditions on the parcel map versus the, so I'll take some responsibility for that one.
And just to clarify, maybe you've already mentioned this, in terms of with the load, the trucks that frequent the facility would only take really place when there is a shoot, right? Is that what I'm understanding when
At the beginning and end. So at the beginning, they'll be loading in sets, equipment, props, grips, lighting, all the different necessary elements to produce the shoot. And at the end is a breakdown. The breakdown.
But we don't know how long a shoot may take. It could be a few days, it could be a few weeks, or
Shoots are technically 6 weeks or 8 weeks. They don't go longer than that. There is an opportunity for a feature film that's possible, but this particular stage is designed towards, as Shep mentioned, the streamers. And those shoots typically run between 6 to 8 weeks of actual shoot time, plus 2 weeks prior for build out, and then typically a week after for breakdown. So in total, it would be somewhere between 10 to 12 weeks of a total shoot. That's what's typical in the industry.
But it's taking place inside the facility, inside the stage.
Oh, yes,
It
100%.
doesn't take
Yes.
place outside.
We,
Okay.
even the loading, they'll back up to the large elephant doors and load in through the elephant doors. You don't park in the parking lot and then carry stuff across the parking lot.
Okay.
Ideally, they'll back the trucks right into the elephant doors and begin unloading directly onto set.
And then the loading that you're proposing, I believe there's 2, is that sufficient?
Yes.
Yes.
More often than not, there's 1. We felt that 2 would be better in this situation, just in terms of the way that the driveways were working, the parking lot, and the fact that these stages could possibly be split into 2 productions at a later date.
And if there's a situation where, you know, the trucks are there pretty much at the same time, and then the staff is loading or unloading one of the trucks, do the trucks that are waiting in the parking area, are they compromising required spaces that is required for staff that works there? Or is there still going to be sufficient parking for the staff and visitors and whomever that's there?
These are great questions. And maybe in process, we can kind of give a little education on how productions work as far as staffing is concerned. The initial 2 weeks when those trucks are on site and unloading into the facility, we actually have the lightest amount of staff in place. It is typically set builders and then some production staff logistically for the production assistants. The actual full grip and lighting teams, directing teams, talent, all of that is not on site during that time. So it's actually the lightest amount during the loading and construction process of the sets. When they leave, then all of the normal vehicular parking would come in because they're the ones that are active and present on set during that time. So there's actually a little bit of an ebb and flow, and it is very unlikely that we would have, essentially, I know what your question is, do you have trucks backed up on Maryland? It's extremely unlikely. Additionally, these productions, time is money, and their logistics and sort of operations are, I mean, down to the hour. They are very precise about these things. They know when trucks are coming. They don't want them backed up because they got to pay that union guy, you know, time and a half to sit on the street so he can come in and drop off his truck. So they really time out the deliveries of all facilities, all materials, all backup. It's a very, very tight process from start to finish, because if they extend beyond, sometimes those fees, whether it's overtime or additional costs, can run up into the millions for days and weeks on end that they're over their shooting schedule. So it is a very precise process for them to bring in materials, trucks, build, shoot, break down, and leave. There's really not much room for error in that. And so having trucks backed up on Maryland would not be something that even production would want.
That or just idling like in the parking lot.
Yeah, no, that won't be the case. That's something that won't happen.
Okay. And again,
I just want to point out one additional thing, which I think is important to note, which is that the studio that's been operating there since 1986 in its current condition has significantly more loading in and loading out than we will likely have when this studio production facility is built. Because in its current condition, it lends itself towards 1 week, 10-day, 2-day jobs where people come in for 2 days, work really hard, bring in trucks, load it up, build the set, and then leave 2 days later. And they're constantly doing that. And that's how the current production facility works. Ours, I know Team has said it could be 6 weeks, but I mean, I'm the eternal optimist. I think we're going to land a great show and they're going to be there for 7 years. And so, for example, just down the street, the Quixote facility where they have, Criminal Minds shot there has lasted there for over 16 years. So on that facility, yes, from time to time, they will bring in new sets, but there are sets there that they've been updating generally, but it's been the same set for over 15 years on the facility. So we're trying to produce a high quality facility that would lend itself to a show like that.
And improve the operation as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So there's significantly less amount of loading in and loading out on the facility than what currently exists.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you all for your responses. I don't have any more questions at this time.
Ms. Toledo, if I may interject, there are no phone calls.
Okay.
Today, just as an
That
update.
was going to be my next question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have no callers. Anyone else wishing to speak? Any closing remarks? Oh, okay.
Hearing Officer Toledo, just want to make clear that condition 10 of both the variance conditions and the parking reduction conditions relative to the parcel map, we would request that be removed because again, it's premature at this time. We're not sure if we're going to be moving the driveway location, and that's a direct result of a conversation initiated on our end.
I'd like to ask the case planner, Vista Izati. Was that is this a requirement to do the parcel map?
The a portion of the property was combined through a parcel map in the 80s, I believe, and there was a condition of approval on that parcel map that those lots involved not have a driveway entrance on them. It's not clear based on the record as to why that condition was placed, and when in conversations with traffic, they do not see an issue at this time. If the proposal keeps the driveway location where it is right now, they would need they would need a new parcel map because they need to ask the planning commission for a modification of that condition. The original proposal first reviewed showed the driveway in a different location, not on the lots associated with the parcel map. So if that is the version they move forward with, the parcel map application would not be required because they don't need to request a modification.
So what I'm hearing is, as proposed, with the driveway now being proposed at the rear on the west side, access from Maryland, a parcel map is required to amend that original approval or condition, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so.
But if that moves, which, you know, they haven't finalized the location on Maryland, if that moves and it's not on the associated lots, they would not need the parcel map.
Okay.
And all of the other lots, everything is tied through various covenants.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you for clarifying. So it looks like, as proposed, it must be, it needs to go in that direction with the parcel map.
Correct, if they move forward with this. If that driveway location moves off of the parcel map lots, then they will not need to. So based off the current proposal and the drawings, yes, but if that changes at any point in the process, it would not be required.
Okay.
If I can clarify, Hearing Officer Toledo, Vista, thank you for correcting my statements. The parcel map prohibits the location of the driveway in a specific location. Again, as Vista noted, there's no record as to why the condition is there. It doesn't prohibit access from Maryland. It just prohibits the location of a driveway. It does not preclude it from where we originally proposed it, but it appears we're now proposing it in the prohibited location. In that instance is the only time where the parcel map would be necessary. So I think, as Vista's saying, if the driveway were to move to the unprohibited location, then a parcel map would not be necessary. That's still in flux at this time. I want to be clear, if the condition is imposed, that it only applies in the instance that the driveway is in the prohibited location.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hearing Officer.
I'm going to close the public portion of the hearing. Thank you all for coming and your comments. I will take this case under submission and render a decision in writing. So the hearing is now officially closed. Thank you for your participation. Today is September 1st, 2021 at 11:02 a.m.
Thank you, everyone.